Hi, thanks for joining our training on how to post jobs on Handshake. My name is Kendra and I'm part of the employer team. When looking to post jobs on Handshake, you'll first have to make sure that you are approved at the schools that you are hoping to post the job to. As a reminder, schools on Handshake are the gatekeepers to accessing their students' alumni network, as well as giving you the ability to post to them for jobs or events or sign up for their fairs. To post a job, you'll first go to your left-hand panel under Postings and select Jobs. When you first come here, you may see a default where your jobs are listed under Favorite Schools. To see all schools that your jobs are posted to, simply click your employer schools. And if you come across a view like this, where you see each job listing with a separate school, you can simply hit the job button and it will aggregate the specific postings and show you the full number of schools that you have it posted to. One thing to note is that you have the ability to post to all schools at one time, or you can be selective in how you choose to list your schools. This is an available function to all employers, regardless of if they are premium or core. Once you're ready to go and create your job, you can go and say Create Job, and you'll be asked to fill in a number of different details. You'll first see two options here of where the student should submit their application. The first option is to have the job listed in Handshake, where students will go and submit their resume and other applications directly into Handshake. The other option, which is most frequently used, is apply through an external system, where you'll go and list in your job title and redirect a student to apply externally in an applicant tracking system such as Workday, iSIMS, Lever, Greenhouse, and many others. If you ever come across an account where you see this has been disabled to apply in Handshake, it is because the employer has elected to put in a global setting, which is part of their company settings, to ensure that all of their applications go through an external system. Even though applications go into the external system, it's still imperative for employers to post their jobs on Handshake so that they can have the universities approve them. And especially for premium employers, this is the way that they will be able to go and send segments and campaigns to proactively encourage students to apply for a job. So as you're listing this, think of this job listing as a posting or object in Handshake to reference back to. So in an instance where you're trying to hire for something like, let's say, a customer success manager, you'll want to make sure that you put in the URL that points directly to that position, such as one that you would see here, instead of sending someone to just an open job board where it shows all of the different options. Think about this always from the student experience. If you go and send a student to a job board that has multiple types of positions, even though they've specifically looked to apply for a customer success role, that creates a poor experience. But if you send them directly to the role listing itself, where they see all of the details of the position that they're interested in and can easily apply, it makes it a seamless experience and reduces the chance that they will drop off from the applicant flow. Equally as important is to ensure that your employer is using something called a source code. A source code is usually an appendage to the end of the URL, and on the employer side, it allows them to go and look into their full list of applicants and run their own report to say, anyone with the source code of Handshake originated from Handshake. This is how different employers will be able to go and evaluate where they were receiving their applicants from. So places like Handshake, LinkedIn, Indeed will typically all have their own source code, but you'll need to be the one to probe your employer partner for questions around if they have this already set up and encourage them how to do so if they have questions. One of the features that you will have access to internally is a guideline on how to go and instruct employers on putting in their own source code. But because there are so many different applicant tracking systems, we don't know the answer to every single one. So in those instances, always encourage your employer partner to speak with their ATS admin or IT teams to embed a source code. But for reference, it usually looks something simple like this. Each applicant tracking system will have its own unique formula for how to embed a source code, but it's usually something along the lines of and source equals, UTM underscore equals, and so forth. If you hear the phrase source code or UTM term, those are usually pretty similar. All right, moving on from there, once you've put in the exact job title and the exact URL, you can go and also add in external application instructions, but for the most part, don't feel like you need to go and do that. You'll also see that there's an add in ATS or job code here. This doesn't actually pull in the job code into this formula, it's just for additional tracking, but for the most part, don't worry about this tracking system code. Just be sure to embed it here, and then your employer will be able to do the rest. If the job in particular is linked to a specific division of the company or department, you can always list that here for awareness for the student as well as additional tracking down the line when we're walking through analytics. You'll then be able to go and select the various points of information on how this posting is listed. We do encourage employers to list their information so that they know where this is coming from and that an actual person is listing this, creating a better personalized approach. You'll put in what type of job it is. So there are things like jobs, internships, co-ops, experiential learning, and so forth. And so you'll want to match this as closely as possible, as this is a feature that students are searching on from their end to try and find the right opportunity. You'll put in what type of employment it is, if it's permanent or temporary, is it a work-study job, and then move into the details page. This is the overall job description that you'll typically see copy and pasted from the actual listing in the employer's external ATS. There's no problem in going and copying and pasting the actual listing from the ATS system so that you can see all of the same details and there is consistency amongst the employer's brand. And fill in the appropriate information that you have from that job listing. The only unique thing to Handshake that they will have to fill out is this area called job roles. Job roles are a series of different job types that students actively fill out on their end. And we go and match the job role type to those that the student is interested in to help them find the right opportunities. This list is not created by Handshake. The overall list is generated by the Department of Bureau and Labor Statistics, but you can generally find the majority of the job role types that you need. And given there are some nuances to what a job may actually entail, you can always put in multiple job roles as long as it matches in part to the listing. So in this case, I would put in multiple areas of customer success just to make sure that we're capturing all of our bases. There's also some customer service elements put into here, so I'm going to include that as well. And then I'm going to put an estimate of how many students we expect to hire for the position. You'll then put in if it's paid or unpaid. Be sure to check out a couple of our guides on best practices for listing this information based on the audience that you're trying to engage. And then you can put in locations for the position. Outside of job roles, this is the other largest criteria that students search on when looking at different positions. So be sure to have your employer partner fill this out. If you need to list in multiple positions, that's perfectly fine, but be sure that the positions themselves match up to the exact listing that you put through. So in our current example, the customer success listing that we put in has one single URL for the customer success position, and that same URL is available for positions in San Francisco or New York. You'll sometimes notice that depending on how an employer has their ATS set up, they may go and have one specific URL per location that they have. So just be sure that this matches up to how they have it structured in their ATS. You'll then put in quick information on work authorization, if it is required or not. And if your employer partner is pushing the student to apply in an external system like the ATS and not directly in Handshake, try to advise the employer to remove any required documents. You'll want to make sure that you're eliminating as much duplicative work as possible for the students. And so if a student is applying through an ATS where they have to upload their documents anyway, it's best not to ask them to do so twice. Next, you'll go to optional preferences. Again, these are just qualifications that the employer is looking for their applicants. Most commonly, you'll see things like graduation date. If it's an internship, you'll generally want to look into those that are currently in school. If it's a full-time position, you'll typically want to use date ranges of either graduating seniors or those that are in the alumni network. Again, none of these features are required, but they do help students find jobs that they are going to be good qualified candidates for, and it helps establish what qualified looks like to the employer. So if you're doing graduation date and you want to only focus on seniors or master's or postdoc students, you can select that. GPA is one of the fields that we find employers are using less and less, more so to focus on skill sets. Again, this is an optional field. If it's a hard requirement by the employer, they can of course fill that in, but we do generally ask, why does GPA matter? You'll then be able to go and select major categories, which are aggregations of various majors, so that you don't need to know the exact title of the major by school, as each school uses their own personal taxonomy. However, if you want to select various types of major categories, you can always select larger bulks like humanities and languages and social sciences. And if there are ones that maybe don't fit in with the position you're looking at, for instance, religious studies, and maybe American Sign Language, if you're looking at a customer success role, maybe those aren't the best options to go along with it. If you'd prefer to just have an open-ended option, you can always include those. And you'll simply go and hit next. This is the final area that is different than any other job board that you'll see across businesses. And it's where you go and list schools. So again, schools are the gatekeepers to any type of access for employers on Handshake, meaning that jobs need to be posted and approved at a school before the students can see it as an available option. There are a few ways to do this in a really seamless fashion, and it's what differentiates the recruiting world from pre and post Handshake. Historically, schools still wanted employers to post their job to their school career services center, but before Handshake, every single school had their own login for an employer. I'm sure you could think of how much time it would take to post the same position 20 different times after logging into 20 different career services center platforms. And what it ended up doing is really hindering the amount of schools that an employer could post to just for the sake of time. And so with Handshake, you're able to go and add in every school that you are partnered with in one click. And this is what is such a game changer for every employer on Handshake, regardless of if they are a premium user or not. You can go and add in every school and really democratize access to opportunity because there's no time difference in adding every school versus one individual school. We also make this really easy so that you can immediately apply expiration dates to all of the schools you're connected to, set a global apply start date, and you can change these independently if needed, if for some reason there's one school that you want to give an extended deadline or create a sooner deadline for. You'll also notice that you can go and put in additional schools, which will redirect you to more schools on Handshake, which is part of the school network management system. You can manually add schools in if you would like to search for them. You can also add a school list, which is a predefined list of schools only if you are a premium partner. So this is the one feature that is premium only compared to everything else on the page. And finally, you can add in the Handshake Open Network, which are students that do not attend a Handshake partnered school, but have elected to create their own Handshake profile, so long as you've added all schools that you're connected to. So to recap, the only premium functionality on this current page is the Add School List option. If you would like to add in all schools, you can do so by clicking this. And only if you've added all schools can you include the Open Network, which are students that belong to non-fully partnered universities. Once you've selected your schools, you'll also get an error if you try and do something like this, where the expiration date is after the apply date. So we'll go ahead and change that. Once you've finalized this, you'll see a preview of what the position looks like from the student perspective. So again, it will pull in your brand page attributes, including your logo, your banner image, your job description. This, and this are all core functions that everyone will have, but premium customers who have media content will have it appear in their job, as well as the student testimonials. So this is a huge advantage for those that are trying to showcase what their business looks like from the beginning, even before communicating with a student directly. Lastly, you'll see that because we used the external ATS, you'll see a button that redirects students to the ATS so that they can apply after selecting Apply Externally, thereby reducing drop-off so that students are able to go and apply for the position that they found through Handshake. One last thing to note is you do need to save this in order for the job to be posted. And once you do, it will go into an approval process where the universities will either auto-approve you as an employer or manually approve your job posting in the coming days. If you ever need to go and save a job posting as a draft, you can do so just by holding off on putting in any schools and saving. It will give you an update that says no schools have been added, this will not be posted anywhere, and you can go ahead and say save. But again, if you have any schools listed and you hit save, it will immediately push whatever you have put in as a request. So we'll do that now. And you'll see that the jobs are being distributed, some of which are auto-approved, some of which will be pending. And so depending on these options, you can come back and see how many have been approved. And you can always go back to see your jobs here. You'll see them listed, the number of schools that have approved it so far, the number that are pending. And you can always go in and edit the details or push out the application date as needed. If the job is still approved at the school and has not yet expired, you can always update the application deadline and you won't need to get reapproval. Once you do have your list of jobs there, you can also review your applicants. And this is available for any user of Handshake, premium or not. And anyone that clicks that apply externally link will show up here where you can go and download a CSV of their standard information like school year, major, GPA, and work authorization status. Those that are premium customers in the Talent Engagement Suite or above will also have access to a category called Sourced Students, and this will allow you to filter on those that you proactively messaged through things like segments and campaigns who took the direct call to action to apply. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And thanks for watching.